All right, with this error, the rules, there are error loading rules, temp rules, debug, cannot define table, cannot allocate memory, line in question, persists, and the time and date stamp in which the error occurred. What we're going to do to fix that is to go to System, Advanced, System, Advanced, Firewall and NAT, and we're going to look for the firewall maximum table entries. Apparently we're overflowing with IPv6 status. I think that's the indicated rule. That's what we're looking at here. There's a couple indications. It could be IPv6, it could be limited to RAM, or it could be limited to entries. So the way we have it set, if we can go back to home and we can look at our PFSense box, we're using 1 gig of memory. So we can't increase that at the time, we can later because right now it's running. So what we can do to alleviate that inside the box settings itself is increase that to 500,000. That's an indicated fix. I went ahead and accidentally fat fingered it to 5 million. It did resolve that to once you're done with it, the change has been successfully applied. And you can see that rule just keeps adding. Then we go and we reboot the unit, and we'll see it reboot here in a little bit. There, it's starting our reboot process. Once it comes back in, that error that we've been seeing should go away. So I've been able to flip back and forth between these setting changes by just after I did my install, looking at my snapshots. Now I had the after PF install, the interface is chosen, the IP addressing configured. That was all from my configuration setting changes or installation setting and setup when we were back in video 1. Right after I did that, I chose that snapshot. Right, that's how I can keep jumping back and exploring different errors that students have told me about or people have told me about. So that's the fix for that. We just have to wait for the reboot to finish. All right, so now our reboot is finished. We'll come back in here. This will automatically reload in a few seconds, and we'll check to see if we're experiencing that same error we had. Log back in. Let's pull you back to full screen because I believe it's easier to read on our set here. So now we'll look at our log sets. When we make a firewall rule, go to LAN, and now we don't have any rules because, again, we loaded back from the beginning. So going back and adding a rule to block, IPv4 and 6, TCP UDP, and we're going to set the port range to, say, HTTPS. Double check, yes, 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 yes. Apply our changes, and no messages came up. Additionally, when we look at the monitor, where it would typically stop somewhere around in here, here we can see that that change is done. So that's our change fix to stop espn.com, which should work. It did www.espn.com. Should work, and we can see that it loaded our title, and then we'll still in the not secure section, and we'll see ESPN load up shortly. Additionally, we can load coolparts.com, which is hosted by cPanel, just doesn't have any content either because the person doesn't own that website anymore or it was never owned. It just depends on them. So we can see ESPN coming up right here. But websites like www.google, which does make use of the HTTPS protocol, which we have blocked due to our HTTPS block here. Does not show up. It's stuck. As does the AARP. Just constantly spinning, loading, could not load, took too long to load. Because as far as I'm aware of, when Google changed it over, they don't have an HTTP domain anymore. It points over to HTTPS. We can see that it's still not working. So when we go back and we decide, okay, that was a bad rule, we want to delete it. Delete our rule, apply our changes. We're back at Google. Sometimes you'll see that people will ask you to double check and verify that you do in fact have internet browsing capabilities and it's not cached. You search for a simple word like purple. A lot of providers and a lot of technicians will ask you to make sure you continue to browse by using a simple search term. So they'll say something like go to Google, which everybody can do, and then they'll say do a search for like a color, purple. We do that because everybody can spell purple, or they don't have to ask you how to spell it or what did you really mean by purple. It's very simple. If I asked you to say, go to Google and check for your IP, there'd be a lot more follow-up questions to that, and it could take your call from small to a lot longer, explaining alpha-phonetically, I like iodine, P like protocol, C like control, O like October, and it's already taking too long. So we want to just kind of get rid of that. Additionally, the project for part 2 was to find the ports for YouTube. It used to be listed before they changed their sets. So if you look, 443 is the outbound port for YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Ustream, Twitch, outbound ports, 53 for DNS. So that's all the things that take place. However, because YouTube makes use of a few different protocols as well as HTML5, it's a little difficult to block its port listings, its port numbers. So it's not easy to do. What we can do is we can look at some real-time streaming protocols, like something that was from Real-Time, the company that used to do video on demand. We can look at some specific real networks, proprietary real-time data transfer, or real data transport. It was RTSP, real-time streaming protocol, operates on 554. However, attempting to block that port on IPv4, IPv6, TCP, UDP, and we put in our port 554, and now it is I didn't block it, so I need to edit that and choose the block. Save. So now our port is blocked. We can apply our changes, and still we don't have any alerts come up. We can actually look at our filter, status filter reload process, and notice that it has done. It did finish. Status. I can never find it except for when it's doing its set. That's the only reason I've never been able to find it. But coming back to YouTube, checking out our home, and say maybe looking at a video, it still works. It works. So the problem here we'll address in our next section when we actually look at our add-ons that we can do. And we'll get to explore those add-ons through Package Manager, and we'll look at available packages. So these are all the extra add-ons that can be used with PFSense. And for the most part, we'll explore this. So take a second and look at these, read the descriptions and what they do and why we would use some of them. Right now we have no packages installed, so we'll use a package for web filtering or web proxying. There's Light Squid, Squid Guard, NTOPNG, which is a way to stop traffic, web traffic, specific web traffic. And we're probably going to use our squid option here instead of Light Squid. We'll probably install that later. So we're not going to do it right now, but that's our process. We'll look into that package to block or filter web traffic. So for the most part, that's what we have. When we go to shut down, we can't use these options. We have to go to status diagnostics. If we try to reboot from here, it won't reboot. The only way I know to reboot is to halt the system or come in and select halt system. So we will choose option 6 to halt our system. That will allow us to shut down PFSense. And now it's shutting down. Windows 10 is not so picky because you'll notice that VMware Tools installs automatically. You can see it's installed here, which allows us to use our settings. Oh, I accidentally paused it. Let's cancel that. I don't want to pause it. I wanted to shut it down. We can use this feature here to shut down, suspend, restart. Power off is the same as unplugging the power. Windows 10 has come light years from, say, Windows 98, Windows 95, even Windows XP, and sometimes Windows 7. Just pulling the power can sometimes cause irreparable harm to your operating system's install. What I'm trying to say here. Just the file system and how it writes to it. Now, because PFSense is shut down securely now, I think my host operating system got a little mad with that. Set. We can go ahead and increase our memory by clicking on PFSense, controlling that, setting that up. Okay, it looks like VMware crashed, so we'll pull it back up. Additionally, these are the errors we were getting, those bugs on errors. That's why we're here taking changes and looking at that. So now that PFSense is back up, our 1 gig of memory, we can actually change the settings on that. Maybe crank it up a little higher. I'll give it 4 gigs of RAM. 4 gigs of RAM, 1 processor, 10 gigs of drive space. And you can see how it's still using that ISO image. I really dislike that problem, although it was the connect on, power on, and off was off. I always like to change it over. So troubleshooting sets, that's what we went over today, and we went over a little bit of PFSense guidelines, PFSense firewall settings to get rid of that weird error that we were getting.